In this video today, we're going to go over how to create a color wheel using watercolor brush pens. Okay, we're going to do one of them with water using a refillable brush pen, and we're going to do the other one without water, just layering the colors on top of one another to make the new colors. Now, I would suggest when doing this, you have a spare sheet of paper available where you can test color swatches. However, if you don't, just the edge of your page will do, because you might need to practice some colors to kind of learn which combinations make what colors. This paper that we're using today is 150 GSM, which is a little bit stronger than what some of you in the class have, as the minimum requirement was 120, but we're going to go ahead and get started on this. Okay, so I'm going to start with a color that is strong and bold, and I'm going to start with the without water section, which is actually more of a challenge for me because I'm still not very familiar with working with brush pens. I'm learning along this year with my students. So if you learn any tips or tricks, I would love if you guys could tell me. So I'm filling in the whole section, and now I'm going to work on creating darker and lighter values. So to do that, I'm going to use a darker red for the deeper value. And I'm going to use a little bit something lighter to make the lighter red. Now naturally, when you add red plus white, you get a pink, so I'm going to start with a layer of pink. Now that might be too light. I might add some red over top of that to deepen it, but let's just try with just pink for now. So as you can see, I've got 3 values along here. Now, looking at these closely, I notice a couple of things. One, that this red, which I did while this one was still a little wet, has bled along the edge a little bit. I also think that now that I get a good look at this, this is more of a red-orange than a true red. So this is a chance to shift it into the correct location. So I'm going to take that same color and repeat it here, knowing that I made a mistake in the red section. However, I'm going to layer another version of red over top of the first one to kind of get that distinction. And I might add a little bit of orange on top of this one to help it stand out different. So I'm going to take this different version of red and go over this first one to just make it a little bit more red. And while I'm at it, I think I'm going to go over this pink, do the same thing, and get it just a little bit lighter. Okay, so now I'm feeling like my deep red, my medium red, and my light red are a little bit more accurate to where I want them to be. So now let's look at the red-orange. So I've put this one red over it, but I think it's not quite orange enough, so I'm going to take the orange and I'm going to overlay it. And that's going to allow me to blend out a color that's exactly where I need it to be. Now I am noticing just a little bit of pilling, so I know I need to be a bit more gentle as I'm working across the page. Okay, and I think I'm going to go ahead and put in some of my main colors right around the circles, just so I can clearly establish what is what. So let's put in some orange. Okay, so I've sort of finished this one, and I would say I've failed this one. I've completed a complete mess of it, and I've overworked the page in a few places. It's not quite bleeding through impressively enough because it is a good quality paper, but I can feel how wet some of these sections are, and I can see how much textures come up. But although I've done a good job in some areas, you can see that there's some areas where I've made a mess of it and I put the wrong color in the wrong place and it's just not working. Hopefully when I do the other one in watercolor, I can do a better job of what I've done here. This is why it's really important to learn how to blend your colors, whether you do layering like I showed in a previous video, whether you build it as a color wheel, however you want to build it. It's important to learn what happens when you use your colors, especially also to learn what the colors are, because some things are really surprising. For example, this color, I should have remembered because I did this video a couple of days ago, but this color actually comes out really close to blue violet. I thought it was going to come out more like a navy blue, and I placed it there, and obviously it didn't work, so I had to go over with the wrong blue there. So it's really important to learn your colors. I'm actually reached the point where I'm thinking I might put a label on these on what the colors are, because I'm having a hard time keeping track since these stud letter ones have no names on them. So just be aware that it's really important to know what your colors are, because we're going to get to creating art using these, and it would be terrible if you got to the end of a piece of work and used the wrong color. But now that I've tried without water doing the colors, I'm also going to try without water doing the shades. So blacks, charcoal gray, and a Payne's gray. Calling it Payne's gray, it's not actually labeled as Payne's gray, but it's pretty close to it. So I'm going to start by just doing a layer of black across all 3 bars. And I'm going to do black down. Okay, I'm doing these so that I can see exactly what's going to happen when I use these different colors to achieve different values. Okay, so now let's try the 2 different grays on here. Okay, so this one is more of the charcoal gray, so I'm going to put that down the middle bar. And I can see what happens with those colors. And I'm going to do the same thing across the middle. Remember that when you work wet on wet, sometimes you get a bit of texture, whereas if you let it dry a moment, have a little patience, maybe have a small chat with someone in between, and you're letting it dry, it tends to work a little bit better. The last one I'm going to do is the color that's sort of a Payne's gray, kind of like a bright silver. And apply that across. And again, I can see what happens to the colors in the layering. So it's really important to understand how your colors blend together. Obviously, you can use gray with any of these colors, but it's good to see what happens when you try these different ones. So to give an example, I could take this charcoal gray and I could apply it over top of this green. And that's a great way to help me get a nice deep green. All right, I'm going to try that with the blue as well, my mixed up blue. You can see it works, but not exactly the blue I was looking to get when I put it on, which is why having a practice page is really important. To just play around with the colors and learn what you're getting before you commit to it on a good piece. Okay, so our next set is going to be the same colors, but I'm going to be using water to blend some of these. All right, now this is really important for ensuring that you get the color that you're really intending to get, because it allows you to just kind of mix them up a little bit. So there's a couple ways of doing this. I'm going to show you a few different ways, so bear with me. Let's start with one that got a nice, good color that I was happy with. Let's go back to that first set of reds, because I was really satisfied with those. Okay, so I'm going to take those couple of reds. It's going to help me get to the lighter colors that I need. Okay, so for example, I might try one technique, which is to apply the water first. Right? That means I need to fill the space in that I want to be the color I've selected. And then I can use the brush pen or the tip of the fine tip pen and use that to fill in this section and get a more painted effect. Now right now when I'm using a single color, it doesn't really show it for all it's worth. But I'm doing this one first because I'm actually going to use this pool of water to make my lightest red. Okay, because remember this watercolor wheel that we're doing is not just colors, it's also tints and tones. And tints are when something is lighter, and tones are when it's darker. Okay, so that gets me that nice color that I was looking for. But I can't do that middle color until these two dry, or else they're all going to bleed together. So I have to be patient and wait for that section. So while I wait for that section, let's jump over and do the orange. So just like before, I'm going to apply just a little bit of water down. And I'm going to use that to create a nice bright orange. Now, when you tip your brush pen into water, you can see how the colors changed. That's the water really going out of the nib. You can see that how it's not causing any color. That color will come back. It's just going to take a moment before it refills. So just be aware of that. Don't have too much water on your page if you can avoid it. Okay, let's give another color a try. Let's try blending too this time. I was really happy what happened with the yellow-green on the previous color wheel, so let's try the yellow-green. Okay, so I've filled that in, and now I'm going to apply some yellow. Just going to place it along randomly, and I'm going to take the green. Place it along a little randomly, and then I'm going to use the brush to blend the two. Now that actually gets me a really nice light yellow-green that I'm liking, so I'm going to slide that on down into the yellow-green section. Since I'm quite happy with that, and I will come back and make that one a little bit darker as I need to. I think to get a nice dark color, I'm going to use this sort of olivey color over here. I was pretty satisfied with that one earlier for a dark yellow-green. So we're just going to apply that down. And with my brush still having a bit of yellow on it, I'm going to work onto this a little bit, being very careful not to let it touch the wet area of the one right next to it. Because if I do that, then it'll bleed right down. Now, although that's a nice green, and I'm very happy with that as a green, I think it needs just a little bit more yellow into it. So I'm just going to go in with my yellow pen and dot in some yellow. Every once in a while, it's good to clean your brush. So just take it onto a separate piece of paper and draw with it a few times. And now I can lighten it up a little bit. Okay, that one's going to definitely need a good clean, so I'm going to have to keep working on that. Okay, so when it comes to using the markers, this is a good opportunity to see kind of